This is what happens when you try to combine the best-selling motorized vehicle in history with some old skis. My dad was 13 years old and was full of ideas. His dad, my grandpa, had just bought an old and broken Honda Dream off a neighbor. It was covered in rust and the engine looked like it had been tossed off of a mountain. As a way to get my dad to learn his way around a toolbox, he had him strip the bike down to his frame. The bike sat there for a few days and my dad began to wonder what my grandpa had in mind. Maybe he would make a rocket-powered bike or a tiny helicopter. Nope. My grandpa had made the trip to the sporting goods store and bought the oldest, most raggedy, falling-apart skis he could find. He set out welding the two longer skis to the back legs and the one short ski to the front. Then he adjusted some joints on the front steering axle to allow the half-sled, half-bike to be steerable. He felt extremely accomplished. About a week later, it was the weekend of my dad's cousin's bat mitzvah, and the whole family was in town. Missouri had just got hit with a giant ice storm that had transformed the thriving city to a dormant apocalypse-like place, covered in snow, but more importantly, a thick layer of ice. There were few cars on the roads because any cars that wanted to get to it literally had to use an ice pick to get the ice off the driveway. Anyone who was outside was either some kids playing in the snow or some dads struggling to chisel off the ice off their driveway. My dad went outside at about 7 in the morning and began to chisel the thick layer of ice away, and by the time it was time to leave at 9, he had done about 5 feet down the driveway. My family loaded into cars and did what many other families were doing, sledding. Though many families were at small hills in the neighborhood, mine intended to impress their relatives in town by going to the biggest hill in the whole city, Forest Park Hill. This hill was endless, that is, until you hit either another sledder, a concrete wall, or you landed in a frozen pond. The whole family unloaded from the cars, bringing sleds upon sleds with them. One of those sleds was my grandpa's modified Honda Dream. The whole family readied themselves at the top of the hill. They could feel the cold piercing their skin, their breaths instantly freezing. My grandpa lifted up his legs off the stiff white snow and confidently began his way down the hill. Left, right, backwards, sideways. The sleigh was completely uncontrollable, as it would not grip onto the rock-solid ice. My grandpa began to wonder what fate the hill would leave him. It soon became clear, when the sled hit a mogul in the ice and tumbled over, throwing my grandpa to his shoulder. The pain shot up and down his arm. He was no longer so confident in his contraption. My grandpa was taken to the car and ridded of the blood and dirt littered across his arm like a big city street. About 15 minutes later, my dad's sister made an attempt on the sled. The hill left her another fate, the ice-cold pond at the bottom. At this point, my grandpa had zero confidence in his contraption. My aunt was taken to a relative's house and warmed up. My grandpa was thinking of what he would do with this cursed sleigh. It ended up in a dumpster on the way home. The hill was closed later that day because of the sheer amount of injuries that had plagued just about anyone who dared step onto the ice.